All right, hello Ace family, welcome. I just wanted to take some time today and we're going to go over Pex fittings. So the crimp fittings, the Evo Pex, and the push Pex, and just tell you everything that you have to know about them so that we can better help customers and be as helpful as we can. So the first thing is that Pex fittings are absolutely awesome. They're easy, they're simple to understand, and the customer doesn't have to solder or mess with copper like they had to do 30 years ago. So that's really awesome. Whenever a customer is at the copper fittings, I kind of let them know, hey, you know, there's this awesome new thing. I don't know if you've heard about it or not, and it's really not new. Pex has been around for the better part of 20 years, so it's been very proven, but people don't do plumbing every day, and it's awesome to show them when there's a better way. So the first thing is it works for everything in a house. So whether you have your line coming off your water heater, it's good for that heat. It's good for just about everything in a house, and it generally comes in 4 different sizes that we carry. So and then it also has 3 different colors too. So there's a white, there's a red, and there's a blue. So I've got each one of these here. So we've got our 3/8 of an inch in the white here, and each size comes in the 3 colors. I'm just showing these for an example. So the white and 3/8 right here, the red and the 1/2 inch. This blue that I snagged is 3/4, and then we've got the 1 inch size too. These come in a few different lengths. We've got 5-foot sticks, which is what this is. We've got 10-foot sticks, which is what the 3/8 example is here. And then we have 100-foot rolls of it, so that regardless of the size, the customer can get taken care of no matter what they're doing. So now that we've got the pipe down, I wanted to show you exactly how the fittings worked. And I wanted to start it with the crimp Pex right here. So the crimp Pex, it's awesome. It's the most economical. That's the main advantage to it. The disadvantage to it is you do have to have a tool to do it. So if you're gonna do just a ton of stuff with your crimp fittings, or you've got a good buddy you can borrow a tool from, this is great because the fittings themselves tend to be more economical. You just have to find a tool. If you're only doing a few, we'll go over some other fittings later where you don't have to buy a tool. So as far as the tool goes, there are two different styles of Pex fittings. So the first is this crimp, and this ring has a little nub on the edge of it, and that's for use with this tool. And the pliers go ahead and crimp that little tab right there, so it can be nice for tight spots. Just a matter of placement, really, what a customer preference is. These pinchers pinch that crimp, and then it's on the pipe and good to go. Guess I've got the pipe here. I can kind of show you exactly how that goes. So you put the ring on first, and then you go ahead and insert your fitting, and then you put it about halfway on the barb just so you get a nice good crimp, and then you go ahead and pinch that, and that's how those go on. That's not as popular as in our area as the other style, and they're a ring fitting. So you're gonna have a bag like this, and they don't come in any smaller because if you're using a tool, you generally go through a lot. So that is a question that we get asked from time to time, is if we have smaller bags of these, and we just don't, just because if you have the tool, someone's usually going through them. So these work the same way. You go ahead and you put the ring on about halfway on the barb, and then take the barb, which I've just got an elbow here as an example, shove that in, and then that's about right to go ahead and crimp it on. What's different about the tool that's used for this is it's going to crimp all the way around the ring instead of just the edge. So you go all the way around, and that's what crimps it on. So they are removable. You can cut them off if you do make a mistake, but they're fairly permanent. There's also a few different tools that you can use to crimp on the rings. This one is one of the most popular ones because it does all the different sizes. You can do 3/8 all the way up to 1 inch, and all you have to do is change the jaws on it. So let's see, when you open the package, it's got all the different jaws and wrenches, so you can just open them and choose the size you need if you're doing different fittings, and then you're good to go. So now that we have the tools covered, I wanted to go over the fittings just a little bit more carefully on them. So one of the most important things when you're installing these is just having a clean cut. So it's real easy. You can kind of plan stuff out and cut it, and you don't even have to crimp till the very end, just to make sure you've got your spacing and whatnot correct. So when you're cutting the fittings, you want to make sure you have to have a good pipe cutter. Basically, you don't want to use a hacksaw where it'll leave a jagged edge. Razor blade is rather dangerous. There's a lot of issues with razor blades and people getting hurt. So a nice good pipe cutter can be nice, so you have a nice clean cut. And then all you have to do is just make sure you put that ring on first, and then shove in the right fitting, and then you're good to go. So as far as the fittings themselves, there is one more way to do this that is a little bit more recent, and it works the same way, but these don't require a tool on the pecs. They just require a pair of pliers. So these fittings specifically, they kind of seal the same way. So they're a little bit thicker, and they're called a Pex lock fitting. And this is nice if a customer is just kind of worried about cost. And these rings go ahead and shove on just like the others do. And then you can go ahead and get the barb, same as the others do. But then how this locks is you take a pair of pliers and you pinch that closed and it locks. So this acts like its own ring, where you don't have to buy a $50 or $100 tool in order to use it, and then you get kind of a more economical fitting out of it. These are removable with a flathead screwdriver too. So once they actually are attached with the pliers, all you have to do is take a flathead screwdriver in that little point and just twist it, and it will pop right off. So regardless of which ring type you're using to crimp on, there's several different fittings that we have. So most of them are for connecting the pecs. So I kind of wanted to go line by line just so you're more comfortable with the planogram and are kind of aware of some of the fittings that we actually do have. So the first thing that you might notice is we have plastic fittings and we have brass fittings. I've seen plumbers use both, and it really comes down to personal preference. Both of them are going to do the job just fine. Within the PEX fittings, I'll focus on the brass because there are duplicates within the plastic that you're not getting different parts between plastic or brass. And so just wanted to start simple. A coupling, just a straight coupling. So if you have to put two pieces of PEX together, that would be a great use for that tool. We've got the elbow, which I used in that demonstration. If you have to change directions on a wall, elbow works great. We've got the T, which is 3 sides, so that you can change a direction or add another line going somewhere. And then we get into, let's see, there's one more. There is a plug. So sometimes folks want to test a line by adding air to it to make sure there's no leaks, because water damage can be expensive. So, or maybe you don't want anything to get in the end of your line when you're doing it. So people might plug it off to keep debris out of it, or to test it. So we do have a it's called a sweat adapter, and sweat is what you do with solder when you're doing copper fittings. So if someone has copper fittings in their house, which most homes before the year 2000 do have copper fittings, you can cut that copper off and put this fitting on there and do solder. and then do PEX for the rest of what you want to do, so you can adapt. Just because you have copper doesn't mean that you can't go ahead and do PEX for your next project. So the other fittings, so these are kind of the PEX to PEX fittings that I went over. The other fittings I want to go over and stress is there's straight adapters. So we've got our PEX fitting to male pipe thread, and that's a majority of the PEX we're going to male pipe thread. And I'm stressing that because the pipe thread, oftentimes customers want to adapt to something else. Sometimes we're going to PVC fittings or want to get to a garden hose or a swamp cooler, and whenever we can get to pipe thread, it's a lot easier to do that. So there's the male threaded fitting. Right here we've got the PEX to a female pipe thread fitting, and so just so you know, those threads, if it's pipe thread, it's going to go ahead and screw together. So and then we do have threaded elbows as well. Threaded elbow, straight. This one in particular is a swivel elbow, so that you can screw it and unscrew it while having the fitting attached. Whereas if you have something like a solid, it won't screw or unscrew. So something to keep in mind there. This is the same fitting, just in an elbow. And then when you're in situations like like if you're doing a shower head, for instance, is a great situation for this. This might be a little bit difficult to tell, but we've got an elbow here that has PEX on one side and female pipe thread on the other, and then it's got these tabs on the back side of it, and these tabs are great for mounting to a 2x4. And so if you're doing something like a shower head or a wall hydrant, where if you're on the outside of your house, you have a little spigot that you can connect your garden hose to. If you're doing that, you want to have something to secure that you can screw and unscrew into. And it just so happens that all the shower head fittings are 1/2" pipe thread. So that's what this is 1/2" pipe thread. And then you can screw and unscrew without having to have access to the fittings behind that. So that's kind of the purpose of this fitting. Right here, this is, you can kind of see the back side of that fitting. So in addition to those, we do have multi-packs of the really popular fittings. So instead of being a 1-pack, we've got 10 packs, because you kind of go over the same fittings and tend to use the common ones quite a bit. So just making sure the customer gets a good cost on those. And then the rest of this section is really about, so all the pink fittings are 1/2 inch, so you know what size of PEX you're dealing with. All of the 3/4 inch fittings are in fact in the blue bag, so that you know what size, and it's easy for you to pick out and look like an expert. So on the very bottom, they're not as popular, but because of the size, but the yellow is the 1-inch size, and it works the same way when you get into 1-inch PEX. In addition to the fittings, again, my goal is to make sure I kind of cover everything and just touch each one separately. We have PEX mounting staples. So if you're running PEX along a beam, along a wall, you can just hammer that in and know it's secure and made for the right size of tubing or PEX for the customer. So the last thing with the crimp-on stuff I'd like to go over real quick is the shutoff valves, the quarter-turn shutoff valves, and these are usually silver in color, and they're going to be for your toilet, for your sinks, for your dishwasher, for your fridge possibly, where you run your PEX line and then you have a shutoff if you have a leaky faucet or you have to replace something. It's very common. Now, everything else is going to be pipe thread, female or male pipe thread. These ones are compression thread. They have a compression nut on them, and that just lets you know the sizing for if you need to recommend some new faucet hose or a new toilet line that goes from this valve to the toilet, so that we can get the customer taken care of in one trip. So again, these are going to be kind of compression fittings. Everything else is very generally going, it's going to be pipe thread. So so that you kind of know the organization of everything. But there's several valves here. Generally the 1/2 inch size will be going to a single faucet or a single toilet, and then 3/8 compression is very common to be on the other side. That's the most common size. If you're going to something like a fridge, that's usually 1/4 inch compression. So just so you have that in your head, but I'm sure that'll be covered in another video. So that's pretty much everything for the crimp-on PEX that comes to mind. The next thing in this section is right here, kind of on the left side of the planogram, and that is called Evo PEX. And Evo PEX is a somewhat of a newer fitting. So with the PEX, the barbed PEX, the crimp-on PEX, you have to have a tool for that, unless you use that PEX lock ring that I went over a little bit earlier. But PEX saw that it might be nice to have another fitting that didn't require a tool, that was still kind of economical, and that's where the Evo PEX is, where it's an easy to use tool. And basically what you do is it is non-removable. So once this is on, if you have to take it off, you cannot reuse the fitting. And once it's on there, it is on there. So don't make a mistake. But what you do is you just line up the hose, and then you go ahead and shove it on, just as long as basically as strong as you can. But what's really neat is how you know this fitting is on here. There is actually a little tab near the middle, and these will be green when the pipe is properly seated into the fitting. So you know it's on. So that's a good option for a customer that just needs a quick fix, doesn't want to worry about multiple parts, can shove on and go. Again, these are non-removable, and if you see green, that means that the fitting's on there and is not going to leak. So we stock these in multi-packs too, as long as singles, and we kind of carry the most popular sizes, the most common parts that people go through. We've got 3/4 and 1/2 inch in those fittings, and just shove on, and they only work for PEX, just like the barb fittings do. So that's kind of everything I had for the barb fitting section here. Now, real quick, I'd like to jump over and kind of go over the similar stuff to the push fittings, or as they're commonly known, is the Sharkbite fittings. And the Sharkbite is kind of cool names. Gotta give them props for that. But it works with the same PEX pipe. It works with the 3/8, the 1/2, the 3/4, the 1 inch pipe. What's special about these fittings is they do not require a tool, and they are removable, whereas the Evo PEX is non-removable. The Sharkbite fittings are a push style PEX, and they are removable, and they work on PEX, but they also work on copper and CPVC too. So the CPVC is that tan PVC, and then of course copper's the metal. So this makes it a great option to be able to adapt if you do have copper and you want to, someone wanted to do a bathroom in their house or add a line. These Sharkbite fittings are great because you can shove them on and then you can continue on. They don't require a tool. The downside is they are a little bit more expensive. So if someone's doing a little bit, it's great and nice and easy for the customer. If they're doing a ton of them, it may be more economical to have the tool, but that's up to them. We just want to present the customer with their options. So how they work is the same way. So we go ahead and we take a nice cutoff tool. I'll hold up a different one this time. Just have a nice clean cut. Again, not a hacksaw, but just a nice smooth pipe cutter cut. And then what we do is we take it, and all we have to do is shove it on, just so it seats all the way and stops moving, and then it's on. It will not come off. It can twist all the way around, but it will not come off unless you have the tool. And there are two tools that you can take it off with. One is this just orange U, and then the other is kind of some heavier crimpers, or not crimpers, but a Pex removal tool, pinchers. We've got that in the Planogram, and those are a hair easy, but figured I'd show you this first. So to remove it, what we'll do is we'll take the orange U, snap that in, and then go ahead and let's see, pull that, and then it will release the teeth and make sure that we can slide out the fittings, and then you can go ahead and reuse it. So if you're remodeling, you're trying to get something working, but you know you're gonna have to take it out, could be a good option for it, but these are very popular. So same pipe fittings, same pipe as the Crimp Pex. This is just a little bit easier and more convenient. So again, I just kind of wanted to walk you through the Planograms so you're aware of kind of all the parts and pieces. We've got green, which is 3/8 of an inch Pex for the Sharkbite. We've got the pink that's 1/2 inch. We've got the blue that's 3/4. We've got the yellow that is 1 inch. So you kind of know where to look based on the size the customer needs. We've got the removal tools on top here. There is, so there's also, similar with the other one, there's single packs and then there's multi-packs, so the customer can save some money if they're going through a lot of fittings. There's end stops and caps, so you can shove them on, test it, and these are kind of nice because as opposed to the crimp on, you have to cut the hose to get that off. These, you can just peel it off and then you can reuse them, so can be a good option, but kind of caps the line off again for debris or pressure testing of the fittings to test for leaks. And then we have straight couplings, just like the others. They just look a hair different, but Pex line to Pex line, and then you can have that connection made. There are Pex to Pex elbows. There are Pex to Pex tees. There can be different sizes of tees. There's multi-packs, and then we get into the similar fittings where you have Pex going in on one side, and then we have pipe thread, male pipe thread in this case, male international pipe going in on the other. And then on the other end here, we've got the same thing in elbows. Here we've got Pex going to female international pipe thread on here. So then we've got elbows. Here we have another elbow that is, you can screw it in to wood so that it's stable and nice and rigid for the customer. And then we have, there's a few things that we didn't have in that other section that we do here. One of them is a check valve. And so a check valve, every fitting has a little arrow on it to know which way the water is. And what a check valve does is prevent backflow. And that's a fancy way of saying that the water can only flow one way. So if you have something like a sprinkler system where once the water goes out of your house, you don't want it to come back in because there could be dirt or something else in the lines. And so that's where this goes through. This will let the water flow through this, but the water cannot come back. It can only go one way. So that can be nice in certain situations, but just making sure you're aware of the fittings so that we can get the customer taken care of. We do have different adapters to different sizes, so this is one of the fittings that we have where you have 1/2 inch PEX, and this is 3/4 inch female international pipe, so a customer can get to where they need. And then we do have different adapters, and usually a customer kind of knows if they're looking for this, but this is a PVC to a CTS pipe adapter in the PEX fashion. And then we get into the similar deals. We have the 1/4 turn valves that we talked about before, just in the Sharkbite PEX. So these are going to have, so everything else is going to be the international pipe thread. These are going to have compression threads on them. So this one, for instance, will shove on your 1/2 inch pipe thread, and then you've got an L or a straight, and then we can go on or off on this so that we can get to where the customer needs to go. There are most of these are 3/8 or 1/2 inch PEX to a 3/8 compression, or in a straight or an elbow. And then we do have a few that are dual shutoff lines. So if you have a dual sink vanity for something like a master, you can have your line come in here, and you can have one cold go to one sink and one cold to go to the other, or the same with the hot. One sink to hot and the other sink to hot. So you can have potentially a few of those. So the fittings are very similar to the 3/4 inch size and the 1 inch size. Just a few more things I'd like to point out so we can be as helpful as possible is this is a depth gauge that we have, and so PEX recommends that you insert the pipe and then you mark it, and then you pull it out before you shove your fitting on, and that's to make sure that the fitting is all the way in. That's the only time I've ever heard of them leaking, and it's very rare, but that's only if someone doesn't shove it in all the way, just to make sure. So that can be real nice, especially if the plumbing is not very accessible. We do have some barrier tape so that if someone is burying this stuff outside, PEX does work inside and outside. As long as it's buried, you don't want PEX in the sun, but as long as it's not in the sun, you're going to be just fine. This will wrap the fittings just to help with corrosion underneath the soil. And then we do have a few PEX assortments along the bottom here, so I'll just pull those up real fast so we can so you can see them. So this is an ice maker supply kit. So if someone is installing a new fridge, this is a great kit that has everything that they need to go ahead to go to their fridge and get them their water line. Earlier in the crimp PEX, I mentioned that we can go to our 3/8 compression, and then we can get the correct hose to go to a toilet or a sink or something. This particular one is kind of an all-in-one. It has the hose and the valve in the push style all in one, so that you can send the customer with one part instead of multiple parts. Same thing, just can't see it very well, I'm sure, in the video, but it's an L instead of a straight. That's the only difference. This one is same thing, just for a faucet. So you have your valve all in one, and it includes the hose, and you can go to your faucet. And then we have the same thing over here, just for a toilet connection valve kit. So kind of nice to know about those in the bottom. And then the last thing I wanted to go over is we do have some of these white fittings along the bottom here, and they're very similar to Sharkbite PEX, to where you just shove the line in and then it's good. But these are common for swamp coolers, especially in our area when it gets hot, where it's just easy for customers to run the line. I've seen people use them for the fridge line and whatnot. So what you take, the main difference is the size of hose. The PEX is 3/8 to 1/4 or 1 inch, excuse me, and the These fittings are for really small hose, so this one in particular is quarter, but they work the same way and they are removable in the same way, just kind of a push on and go. So anyway, I hope it was beneficial. As always, ask anybody if you have any questions about this. Hopefully we got it all, and anyway, we'll do this soon. All right, so just real fast, I forgot a couple of things, which is going to happen a lot. So if you forget any of this stuff, there's some easy explanations for a customer. On top here, we do have little cheat sheets of the crimp pecs as long as the push pecs, so that you can kind of see that, remind yourself how the crimp-on stuff works. And then right here, I particularly like this because it shows your pecs, your copper, and your CPVC, so that you can explain to the customer how that worked. And anyway, try not to forget anything. The other thing I wanted to make sure to mention is we do have some regular ball valves within the PEX section, and they are PEX, but they're in the ball valve. They're in the valve section, the valve planogram. So, but they work the same way, where you have your PEX crimp on. We have a Sharkbite version where you shove those in, and then you have a nice ball valve if it's needed. So anyway,